I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter podcast. I have my special guest, Sam Kuehnle here, who is the VP of Marketing at Loxo. And one of the reasons why I'm excited about bringing Sam in is Loxo is one of the most powerful platforms when it comes to independent recruiters and small to medium-sized staffing firms, which means they have tons of data on how the future of recruiting is evolving. So Sam is here to actually talk about some of the data, talk about where things are going. And as I'm sure most of you guys know, because you've heard on my podcast, there's still a lot of recruiters that are still stuck in the 1980s or the 1990s. Sam is going to be talking about the evolution and how we can make sure that us recruiters, we're ahead of the curve so that way we don't get left behind again. So Sam, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm excited. Hopefully I live up to that intro right there. You hyped it up pretty good.
Well, before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background, how you got into recruiting, and what you're doing now?
Yeah, background. Have been in the B2B SaaS space for over 10 years. Been in-house, been in agencies. So have seen it all. And one of the first things I heard when I came over to the recruiting space is that the rec tech is about 5 to 10 years behind marketing tech and sales tech. So I feel like I've got this like crystal ball in front of me because I've only lived and breathed in marketing tech for the last 10 years. So to jump into your next question, I got my start in the recruiting space when I joined the Loxo team here. So, I've engaged with recruiters on a personal level, but I've never seen it at this level and from this view. And honestly, I think it's one of my favorite industries, not to, blow smoke up anyone here, but I really enjoy the space, and I think that there's so much opportunity and there's a lot of desire to learn and do better, which is something that I do think is unique about recruiters is they want to figure out, like, how can I do my job better? How can I be more efficient in it? And that's where I'm like, perfect. I've got something for you. I want to learn from you, but let's make it happen with the tool as well.
And, real quick, Loxo, for those that don't know, if you want to kind of go into a quick Loxo intro.
Yeah, so talent intelligence platform. What the heck is a talent intelligence platform? Most recruiters, you usually have something like a CRM, you have an ATS, you have LinkedIn Recruiter, you have an outreach tool, you have a sourcing tool. A talent intelligence platform is when you have all that under one roof, because I'm sure you've felt the fun and frustration of trying to like sync information from LinkedIn Recruiter over to your ATS, or when you want to send an email to someone and have it sync back to your CRM and it's non-existent. So we have everything in one place, and what that does is it makes the workflows as a recruiter a heck of a lot better and more simple, more effective. And when you look at the pricing and the savings, most of our organizations, especially as you were saying, like smaller shops, it's about 90% savings when you start to line item out like what you're paying for each of those products versus coming over and joining us. So I call it's one of those no-brainers. When I first joined, I was like, Matt, this sounds too good to be true. Tell me like what I'm missing here, what's going over my head. He's like, no, this is the future of recruiting. Most people just don't know we exist. I'm like, all right, challenge accepted. I'm going to come in as a marketer. I can solve for that.
And you guys also, so you got the paid platform that has like so many bells and whistles that it knocks out probably about all your 5 other different programs, but you also have a free version too. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we just rolled it out back in March, but it's Loxo free, and what it essentially is it's an ATS and a CRM. So when we found out how many recruiters, especially when they were starting their own firms, were using Google Sheets or Excel or these other, just like trying to manage things out of Outlook, we're like, that's unbearable. How do you possibly do that? And so knowing that those are the types of recruiters we really want to help, we're like, let's make this free. Let them get started with this. And then once they start growing their company, they have those first couple contracts, then they can upgrade if they want more features, if they want to be able to send the emails out, if they want to be able to get the contact information. But so many recruiters are starting at like, we just don't have a good foundation. So we're like, let's give you the foundation to set yourselves up for success in the beginning versus you trying to piecemeal it in the beginning and then come to us later on and have to rip and replace whatever you'd been doing from the start. It's like, let's give you that first building block instead.
Awesome. Now let's just go ahead and start jumping into the evolution of recruiting. So recruiting, whatever has worked, we all want to keep on making sure it works day in and day out, even though it's, the last 30, 40 years. But here's the thing. Like we have artificial intelligence, we have digital marketing. Like I actually talk to firms that do zero outbound and it's all inbound due to technology. So, and here's one of the biggest things. I absolutely love artificial intelligence. It is the craziest thing, the automations, the things that you could do. But here's the problem with it. It's creating a lot more noise. And how do you break through that noise? So Sam, like with everything that you've done in the other parts of the marketing world, what do you see with recruiting and where do you see recruiting at? Where's it going to go?
I'm going to start this with a caveat. As we've said, I'm new to this space, and I'm going to talk about how it needs to evolve. Like, I'm typical marketer of me, right? So take this all with a grain of salt. Don't completely bash me for it. But this is where I like to say, what can you learn in other areas and apply it to new places that you're coming? So quick metaphor, it's like you'll read a fiction book and you'll get a great idea. You don't always have to read like the nonfiction, how to build your business 101. Like sometimes you get your best ideas from left field. So I'm like, all right, how do I apply what I saw in marketing and sales and everything else and bring it over to recruiting? So when I first joined Loxo, I was like, all right, let's just set the groundwork. How is recruiting done today? And so you've got things like post and pray job postings. How do I get as large of a candidate pool as possible? Usually I'm only starting conversations with candidates that are actively seeking new roles. They're coming to me, withholding compensation and company names until you're ready to talk to me as a recruiter. Usually, don't want to call it poor conversion rates, but I'm passing over a lot of candidates to the hiring manager and letting them kind of figure out, okay, who do you want to go and interview and everything else. And then I thought, that sounds an awful lot like marketing about 5 years ago, was spray and pray messaging. We were focused on lead quantity over lead quality. We were only running Google Ads campaigns going after people who were actively in market. What's the best recruiting software, and only showing up for search terms like that. I'm sure you all have seen pricing withheld until you talk to sales. You go to, like Loxo, Bullhorn, you name it. You have to talk to a sales rep if you want to find out how much it's going to cost for you. And ultimately that led to poor fit prospects that were being passed over from marketing to sales because they downloaded an ebook. It's like, well, they didn't really want to talk to sales. They just wanted the content. So a lot of parallels between those two. I'm like, this is fascinating. So we've started to bridge that gap in marketing, where now marketing's focused on how do you attract your ICP in the beginning and really focus on the quality of those people versus trying to get as many as possible. And so how you do this is you create demand for your product, your service, your company well before the prospect enters the market. So instead of saying, I need the best ATS, it's like, hey, I've seen Loxo all over the place. They've been giving me a ton of value. Like, I'm just going straight to Loxo.co to like go check out their product. I'm going to talk to them. And they have transparent pricing on their website. So it's like, I know exactly what I'm getting, how much it costs. So when I'm ready to talk to sales, I don't have to do this awkward dance. That's where marketing tech is common. I'm like, I see the same type of thing happening for recruitment, recruiters, and everything else. So it's like, where do you think that that's going to go with, okay, as these conversations start to evolve, how do I as a recruiter become more transparent with those conversations and saying, I'm looking for this role, or developing relationships with the candidates far in advance of having the position. So when you do send that MVP over to your clients, it's like, it's a shoe-in, everything about them. So yeah, it's, as I say, that was a long-winded way of me getting to like, that's where I kind of see the future going. So how do we help recruiters evolve and get to that? And that's the part that like really gets me excited. So I've definitely got some thoughts on like where I can see that evolve, but I want to stop for a second because I'm sure that you've probably got a few points in there.
No, I was gonna let you keep on going, but I mean,
Okay.
it is one of the things, candidates are getting hit up so often because the problem is everybody knows that they're in a job campaign. Everybody knows they're in a marketing sequence, and some of these people, especially like in the cleared space where I'm at, they're like, okay, you're the 50th email that I've gotten today by noon. I'm in a skiff. I don't have time to sit there and answer every single message back. Well, one, be a little more creative than the message. But two, send them a pigeon or something to the skiff door. But yeah, it's just, there's technology's moving. Technology is here to help us. And it's, I really truly believe in keep the fundamentals, but we need to figure out how to really evolve.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, I think of 3 key points from my side. I like to prep for these types of things and have things so people get value out of our conversations. But you hit it right on the head. One of my biggest ones is like outreach needs to improve, as you hit on, like the number of emails, the number of in-emails that you receive or anyone receives on a day-to-day basis that are blatantly copy and pasted. Like the number of times I've seen, hey, John, I'm like, I'm not John, but cool. Thanks for letting me know who else you're talking to about this role, or roles that I'm pulled into by a bad scrape. So in my About Me section, I talk about jobs that I wanted to do when I was growing up. It was like physical therapist, soccer player. Do you know how many people I've had reach out to me say, I'm looking for a physical therapist? I'm like, cool, it's not me, but appreciate knowing that you really didn't do your due diligence and starting to pull this.
Real quick, has anybody hit you up to be a soccer player?
No, but I got a lot of BDRs that are like, yo, I grew up playing soccer too. Let's chat. And I would gladly have a conversation with a BDR who does that. I'm like, you read my profile. You did the due diligence. You want one-to-one versus just me being a part of this mass upload.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it's fun. So yeah, that's a big point that obviously I'm clearly enthusiastic about. But when you think about like, how do you attract top talent, whether that's you as an employer, you as a recruiter, remote work is here, and it's here to stay. So people are no longer geologically restricted. I remember I grew up in a city where it's like you could choose from 10 companies you wanted to work at if you wanted to stay in that city. Now that you can hire talent from anywhere, you need to create a desire for people to want to come work for your company, or to go through you as the recruiter of choice when they do go start to find that next opportunity. And that leads into this last one, which is like transparency. It's more and more important. People want to trust brands. They want to trust recruiters. So getting to the point earlier, it's like, I can't tell you the comp, or I'm recruiting on behalf of a company in stealth mode. I'm like, well, if I'm going to leave a company that I'm happy with, or I'm not really actively looking, I don't want to be set up for a company that could have the worst culture, or someone that bad experience. People want to know that ahead of time. So I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste your time. So how do you become more transparent in the process? And thinking about, you're approaching them. They're not coming to you. So you have to convince them. You have to make the conversation appealing for them to want to continue that. So that's a lot of the stuff that those are just 3 things that I was thinking of with how it needs to evolve, but they're all very doable. But it's also, when you put yourselves in the shoes of the candidate, the other person, it makes a lot of sense. But sometimes we just get so wrapped up in our own head as a recruiter, as a marketer, that we forget to do that for 2 seconds.
Well, I think part of it is also, I hate to say this, the training from the 80s, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, that same training has pretty much been the same. I learned it. I taught these people this. They taught these people this. They taught these people this. And this is back in the day where, they didn't there was no internet on your phone. It wasn't like people spending 1 to 4 hours on this. It wasn't like the days where, you got 400 emails during a day and 35 calls, and 75% of them are just spam callers for ERC or whatever kind of stuff.
Yeah. Do you remember when you used to be excited to get a phone call or a text?
Oh my God. I thought that was the greatest thing ever. And now I'm like, I know candidates probably do the exact same thing. At least the candidates that I talk to, most of the time they don't have access to their phone during the day.
Yeah.
So I catch them on the commute on the way home or in the evening. So they're that little bit of window of time, they're sitting with their families typically when I'm calling them. And of course, I'm super nice and hey, if you're busy, we could chat later, let's get another conversation. But, it's just the nature of the beast. We are, I think I'm special. Every other recruiter thinks they're special, but at the same time, they're getting hit up so often.
Yeah, there's a lot of us. So yeah, I've got to the point where I'm looking at my phone as I say this. If a number pops up that I don't have saved as a number, or someone that said, hey, I'm going to be calling from a, area code 123 before, it's screened. I'm not even answering it, because I know at this point it's going to be a BDR, someone calling about my extended car warranty, or something else that I really do not care about. So it's how do you start to break through all that noise? So I think that actually kind of ties in with things that you're really interested about, like automation, AI, and it's it could go one of 2 ways when you really start to play with some of those layers. So I'll let you tee it up or go with your thoughts here, but I think it's a good spot to head to.
Well, and you're also in the digital marketing space, and I kind of want to jump on this.
Mm-hmm.
The things that you've seen in other industries, what are some of the ideas that us recruiters can start to implement to kind of be ahead of the curve?
Give value free first. That's probably one of the biggest unlocks that I've seen as a marketer. So many people have been trained when they want to buy tech. It's okay, I'm going to go to a website. Everything's going to be gated. I'm going to have to fill out this form to get an ebook or a white paper just to understand what the heck the product does. And then I'm going to be entered into a 50-step sequence, or a BDR is going to bombard me over the head until I agree to talk to them. So I was at Refine Labs before I joined Loxo, and we flipped that script on. That's how we're give everything away for free. If people want to research, let them research. You shouldn't have to make it tough for them to do that. And so let them understand who you are, what you do, the value you can provide, but also give that value ahead of time. So especially for someone in services like recruiting, show your expertise up front. So use case studies, use customer testimonials, talk about the tactics that you use. And often I say, give your playbook away, because the thing is, you're freaked out about giving your playbook away, but I can promise you 99% of people will read it and nod their head, get real motivated. They're not going to do anything with it. They don't know how to implement it, or they just won't use it. And that's a difference between, the top recruiters, the top marketers, is they know what to do, how to do it, and they can do it, versus just the that fleeting motivation where it's I'm going to do this. I put it in my Asana board, and then it just goes to die.
Well, real quick, I know one of the things, people don't want to share their secrets. And you just hit this key thing that I absolutely love. Here's the thing that I've learned interviewing some of the top people in our industry. they can share the secrets, but I feel like the amount of like implementation sometimes behind something is like less than 1%.
Yeah. Ideas are a dime a dozen. Execution's everything.
And so when it comes down to like, I social sharing, like the way the LinkedIn algorithm is actually built right now, it's actually built for the storytelling. It's built for those success things. And it's, us recruiters, like I hate being the center of attention, which is why I'm like interviewing people for a podcast, and you guys are the center of attention. But here's the thing, like even myself, like get better at, like we've shared this on a few other podcasts, but get better at sharing your success stories and sharing what you're doing. So Sam, I absolutely love that you're like really highlighting that.
Yeah, I mean, it adds to your credibility. And it's like, okay, if I do have 10 recruiters reaching out to me, I've seen Ben all over the place. I've seen what he does. Like, I have this built-in trust with you already where I'm going to give you a leg up before I go to any of those others, because it's like I have a sense of what it's going to be like to work with you.
So before we jump into the next part, like, creating those omni-channel ways of reaching out to people, do you have any other advice that you have on this part? Omni-channel.
Knowing that most communications are ignored, like we just touched on, like good luck getting through to my cell phone. You're not going to find me in mail. How do you develop the relationship first? So it's like that doesn't really fit into a channel per se, but what you can do to break into this is do some unscalable things first that become scalable. So like, again, what does that mean? You just gave me like the eyebrow up. So take time to create meaningful templates. And so I say templates are what's going to allow this to scale, where you can plug in actual personalized information as part of your outreach. So not just like a, hey, Jenny, hope you're doing well. How about that weather? Have this role here, but figure out a way where it's like, 2-3 sentences about something that was, interesting that they put on their profile, 2-3 sentences about something that they recently posted on LinkedIn or on their website or something, but show that you care, show that you wanted to take the time to do the research. And this is going to help you stick out. And when you do have that outreach, if that email, like they're going to notice, because they're used to so many of these just cut and paste, all of that, where at least you've been read, you've been mentally stored. There are, I think, about 4 BDRs in my head that if I ever need a product, I'd know who they are because they took the time to do this kind of stuff for me. So after you've established that relationship, that's where you can start to build a relationship through email, through phone, through text, through whatever, and say, you've got that incredible experience. Like I work with clients who would love to have someone like you. Do you mind if I share those opportunities as they come up? So this isn't something I'm trying to place right now, but it's that drawn out relationship where also I'm not trying to place you right now so I can make a quick buck. I want to find the best opportunity for you when it's the right time. So value meets just being empathetic and a good human, and then drop them into those sequences. That's the scalable part later on. Like I'm just going to say, I'll reach out to you every now and then, but I'm just going to forward you emails or forward you different opportunities as they come up, but you're going to know why I'm sending them to you and where my head is at as they're being showing up in your inbox.
And I want to highlight what you just said, because I actually had a friend that taught me this. And, it's when you get taught like a marketing sequence, it's the coolest thing in the world. It's like, like mind blowing. If you don't know about it, like go learn about it. Loxo even has it like built into their platform. But he just like, he scraped a list. And then there was an additional column that he built out. He went to every single LinkedIn profile and actually just like something personalized and wrote 2 to 3 sentences of personalization. And then you add that little like snippet into the marketing sequence, and it is truly a personalized, scalable thing. Yes, it takes time, but that's also a $20,000 to $50,000 check that you're getting.
I'd say that ROI is worth it. Absolutely. I mean, yeah. And the bar is so low that that's all it takes to make, like, you stack those up once a quarter. And I mean, you just made $100,000 to $200,000, right? So yeah, I'd say that's time well worth it.
Awesome. Before we, marketing, future of recruiting, anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's good for now. I'm going to tee us up for round 2 at some point in the future.
So when it comes to like creating an omni-channel, what are some of the ways and advice that you would say to do that?
Put yourselves in their shoes. Think about when you're being sold to, if you were to be recruited to, how do you want to have outreach? How would you respond? What are the types of things you would do? So I'm sure that you get this all the time. You get a connect request that has a pitch in it. Like, I've never engaged with this person. And honestly, you've been so burned by those people at this point where, if someone's running this playbook, you know what to expect. So how do you, as I say, like take the time to create that relationship before? So before you even try to form the formal relationship, like just go find them wherever they're active. If it's on LinkedIn, cool, go follow them. You don't have to connect with them. follow them, put the little bell notification on. So when they post something, you can go and comment on it as a human being and you can start the conversation. They're going to start to see you and they're like, oh, that's interesting. This person's like, doing some back and forth with me. Do it a few times and then you can send a connect. You don't have to put any exclamation. They're going to know what you do at the end of the day. You're going to know that you're a recruiter, but it's this like being pushed upon sales recruiting motion that has so badly pushed people in the other direction, where once you do that, that opens up the doorway for everything else. So then you can send the connect request, or you can say like, hey, we've had some great conversations. You can shoot them a DM without connecting and be like, I really enjoy your point of view on XYZ. I work with companies who are trying to find that exact person. Like, let's keep the conversation going. And that's just such a different dynamic from what 99.9% of the other people do. That is how you use omni-channel in today. So it's like, find them on social, then you can use email, or if they prefer text, be like, would love to just keep the conversation going. What's your preferred method? Like, happy to do DMs, happy to do WhatsApp, wherever you're at. Like, just tell me what's easy for you. I just want to drop a line whenever I have something that's helpful or valuable. And then don't just show up when you have something that's going to be helpful for you. But if you know that they're in, the construction tech industry and something major just happened, or you come across this cool article, send it over to them. Be like, hey, thought of you, thought this might be relevant or helpful, or a video, those little things go a long way. And that's where it just reiterates to them, you're in this to help what's best for them and how they can advance as a person and in their career. And then at that point, like, the channel doesn't matter as much. It's finding them where they're at, but you should have the tools to be able to reach them where they're at. If it's on social, if it's on email, like, do you have the platform that allows you to do that easily?
Well, okay, so that's a perfect long game. And I know there's a lot of recruiters, every time you get a position, it's almost like a guns against your head and you got to go. Like, how do you kind of start shifting your mindset to play the long game rather than the short game?
So the guns against your head, you should already have that little black book filled out. You should know those people. Like, if you have those relationships, if you think about starting your agency, if you're in-house, great. Start building your agency on the side right now. Work for 6 months to just build out your relationships to start on that. So then when you do want to go start placing people, especially like we work with exec search and those types of orgs, you're not going to find that person quick. You've got to, have those contacts. They're not looking to change position right now. So that's the way I would think about it, is you have to play the long game, play the short game. You have to go. We were talking about, you went running 6 miles right before our conversation. Like, you couldn't just go do a marathon today. You have to practice before you get into that. If you try to jump into it, good luck. You're going to burn out by half mile. So yeah, really just, you have to get out of your own head. And like, we've been so trained on this, like, dopamine hit of everything fast, needs to be quick, needs to be high return. Just stop, take a second, breathe, and say, like, if I want to be a successful recruiter 2, 5, 10 years from now, what do I need to do to set myself up to be able to do that? And is it sustainable to try to keep doing these like quick turnaround quarterly placements? Or am I in it for, if I'm going to be here 10 years, like, what do I need to do? And it usually does come back to having those relationships, people being willing to talk to you versus hoping that someone, your 2% open rate gets you someone.
Oh, I absolutely love what you just said about looking 10 years down the road and thinking what you need to do today to be that recruiter a decade from now.
Yeah, I mean, that's career advice. Honestly, I think it goes beyond recruiters. That's what one of the, like, my mentors told me as a marketer. I'm like, I love that. Like, look at recruiting goals past this month, but if we want to grow and be, own a certain amount of market share by 2025, what do I need to do today as a marketer to do that?
And pause. Like, I know there's many recruiters that are just like, okay, like, 10 years from now, but like, how many of us that were already 10 years into this?
It's never too late to start.
Love this. Absolutely love that. So we've been talking about marketing. We've been talking about AI. We've been talking about all that stuff. There's so many cool tools. But at the same time, what are the proper utilizations for them?
Yeah, it's funny. I was literally just doing this morning. We're starting up a podcast over at Loxo, and I'm currently hiring a few team members. One of them's going to be helping to create videos from these conversations. But in the interim, it's me, team of one. So how the heck?
That's me.
Yeah, right. So we'll have a side conversation about this in a bit. But like, yeah, how do you create these videos when you also have a million other things to do? So I was like, let's check out some of those AI tools that are out there. So there's one by OpenAI, Opus something.
Opus Pro.
Opus Pro. Yep, exactly. So I tried that out, and I just shared this thought this morning about it. Ironically enough, but it was basically. Let me pull up the post because honestly, I do a lot better when I put my thoughts out and then like have a second to think on them and read it. So, all right. Topic of the post. will AI replace my job? Like that's what everyone's talking about, right? So wanted to create these videos. So I was like, all right, let's look up AI video repurposing tools. Came across Opus Pro. Their context is you use one long video, you're gonna get 10 viral clips, create 10 times faster. It's a generative AI tool. So I was like, cool, let's go drop in this episode, see what comes out. And so I went through this just like, I'm very practical with the recommendations I do. I love theory's great, practice is better. So I'm like, here's what I learned. Overall rating, 5 out of 10. Well, that's not good for an AI tool. Why is that? And that's not me being skeptical of AI. I've had phenomenal uses with it. I've had less than ideal uses. So I was like, all right, pros, cons, let's weigh it out. Why was this? So pros, it did a good job of going into the segments. It contained like the content and the talk tracks worthy of micro videos. It actually chops up the snippets and combines them together to make the story and thoughts more cohesive. It adds captions, it adds colors to certain words to emphasize them, and it has a much faster initial turnaround time than a person. It's upload it, 30 minutes later, you've got some of these videos. So I was like, okay, well, 5 out of 10. What happened that made me kind of like on it? So sometimes the cut segments were cut short and it didn't include the points that were something I'd want to include in that clip. Sometimes the chops didn't really make sense, or they put together the same sentence in it like 3 times. So it was just this weird repetition thing. Sometimes the words and the colors that they used highlighted words that didn't make sense to emphasize. And ultimately, it's like I had 10 videos in 30 minutes, but I'm going to need to go back in and edit them. So it saved me time. What I ultimately learned was like AI is great for going from like 0 to 50% in a project. It's going to help you like do the initial research, do the initial lead work, build the initial, if you're using ChatGPT, like put the prompt in, get V1 of your email out. But where the value is the expert coming in afterward and taking it from like 51% to 100%. That's where the value is. That's how it becomes more personal and not just going to blend in with everything else. So yeah, long-winded way of me saying a couple takeaways. If AI is going to replace you, that's a separate issue. You need to have a long talk with yourself. If that's your output, is it level with like 0 to 50%? And then if I were to think about AI with Loxo, something I'm really familiar with, promise I'm not trying to pitch product here. You're a recruiter, you use Loxo. Say you're trying to source a candidate. You can go put in your couple of filters and it's like, okay, cool. I've got 10,000 potential candidates. Now you have to go through and sort through the 10,000 candidates. Or you use our AI that uses those same filters, but it also looks at the role that you're hiring for, the title, the company that you're hiring for, and the job description. And it's going to pre-sort that list for you. So based on those filters, what we know of this, the company, all of that, it's like, we're going to rank these for you. And more often than not, like people's eyes light up and they're like, that actually is a really strong candidate. Like I could go and shortlist 8 out of 10 of these first candidates right now. So that's what AI is it's just helping to do that initial research where you're still going to want to go and look at each of those, candidates, but how do you just become a little bit more effective or efficient with it? And that's where I see it happening is it's not going to replace you. It's just it's a superpower if you know how to harness it right.
And when you were talking about the video, I've tried Opus. I got a whole list of other ones I've tried. And prior to finding those, I think I was spending like maybe 5 to 7 hours a week outside of recruiting, outside of like interviewing for this podcast, just trying to make little video clips. And I was just like, I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Oh, it takes time. It's fun. Don't get me wrong. It's a great creative side project, but it's like, by the time you're finished, like that was a lot of time longer than I should have spent on it.
I'm like, yay, I got 50 views.
Yeah.
But no, I absolutely love that because like definitely when it comes to like what we're doing with recruiting is, AI can make you better. AI can give you the time to actually build those relationships, have those deep conversations, and talk about the impact that the position is going to have on, the candidate's family, their future, everything.
Yeah, and that's where you come in. You add all that. So yeah, it's like, how do you set yourself up to have more conversations with people versus trying to get the conversations with people, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So another thing I kind of want to interview you on is, I think when I saw like one of your messages, you're like, hey, I'm pretty much shut down this week to do some deep work and deep thoughts. I absolutely love that because for at least me running, that's where I do like half my actual thinking happens on a run for me. Like it's amazing. Like the times I get back from a run, I'm just like, oh yeah, what about this? What about this? And actually there's a lot of times I actually stop my run and do voice recordings on my watch and everything. But the power of deep work and deep thinking, I think can change a lot of recruiters' lives. So do you want to talk about what you're doing there?
Yeah, you have to be very controlling of your calendar. Controlling might not be the right word, but yeah, protective of your calendar. So the way that I think about this is I know myself and how I work. I think and do best in the mornings when it's just me, brain's still fresh. So, 7:30 to 11:30, like I'm ready to rock and roll. That's when I want to take on my big rocks. I want to knock out those big tasks because come lunchtime, I enjoy food. I eat big lunches. So like my brain usually after lunch is a little bit slower. It's not quite firing. Like I'm good for social, like having these types of conversations, but for example, I'm going through a big messaging project for Loxo. So the big thing is talking about earlier, it's like we're a talent intelligence platform, but we have 6 different instances for each type of recruitment. So we have an ATS CRM for exec search, for RPO, for in-house, you name it. But if someone comes to our website, they just see it's like become a hiring machine. And the biggest thing that we always hear is like, if you're not built for exec search, if you're not built for RPO, I don't want it. Like we have a very particular, way that we need to do things. So I'm like, okay, how do I better communicate that then from our homepage and then to the specific recruitment type pages to speak to that and show them like, no, we are for you. We built this in a different way. So that's not an easy project, especially when you're 6 months into a new role, you're new to the industry. Like, how the heck do I do this? Well, you have to sit down and think and really, really go through it. So I carved out time where I blocked everything. I turned Slack off, put my phone down, facing down. And I'm just like, put headphones on, let's go to work. And I'm big on frameworks. So I've got like my Google Sheets up and everything where I'm like, all right, what am I trying to solve for? It's okay. It's like, who are the people? What are the industries? What do they care about? How do we solve for this? And just starting to kind of like drag and drop, play with things until I get it to a point where like that message makes sense. Let's jump over to Figma and play with this on the website and see what it looks like, because things on paper often look good until you put it on like a website and they're just like, oh, that's way too long. That's not going to work. So, you need to have the time to do that kind of stuff. And that's what I'm really thinking about as I'm hiring for the roles on my team is I use an agency right now for my marketing, but my biggest thing is I want someone that can go play in Midjourney for 8 hours a day and come back with one really cool thing. Like that's what, like, I want somebody who can do that because that's what's going to make us stand out. They're going to get enjoyment out of that. And that's just a much better use of time. It's going to be more effective. So how do you let people do that? It's by letting them have these kind of like deep work sessions, not needing to be in every meeting all the time, feeling like they need to reply to Slack or Teams or whatever instant messaging service you use as a company. So, yeah, that's kind of like my general take on it. So like pick 2 to 3 big things that you want to do in a day, block the time off to do it. And then it's really easy to like start with the easy stuff and be like, send this email to Jenny, reply to this message over here, send 10 LinkedIn connect requests. But are those moving the needle that much for you? Or are those better things to do when you're tired after lunch and you've got, 20 minutes to kill before your next meeting? It's like, just how do you better organize yourself and your calendar so that you get the most out of what you need to do and what you know of yourself?
I love that because that's goes into one of the biggest things that I've seen with talking with recruiters, and it's always a struggle. Like time blocking, it could be everything's inbound, everything's conversation, but like take those mornings and do like something deep, do some deep work that's gonna really impact, like what you said earlier, where you're gonna be 10 years from now.
Yeah. And it's funny, you were talking about voice notes while you were running and stopping to do that. I learned that lesson the hard way. Do not try to write a handwritten memo on your phone while you're running. That will not end well for you or your phone. So props to you for using the voice memo. I wish I had that advice before.
Real quick, if you use ChatGPT on your phone, like the voice transcription is amazing.
Interesting. I haven't tried it on my phone yet. Good to know, though. Very good to know.
Sorry for the tangent. All right. Before we jump into when we go the quick fire questions, is there anything else that you would love to cover?
No. This has been a fun conversation. Honestly, it's a breath of fresh air because I've been on so many marketing podcasts where it's nice to like come from a different angle and all of this. So this is fun. Like, I love it. Let's go.
All right. With everything that you see at Loxo, the data, the customers, what advice would you give to a brand new recruiter that's just getting started in the industry in 2023?
All right. Take this with a grain of salt. Again, new to the space. Canned messaging and lack of research is not the answer. Like quantity is not the game that's going to work anymore. You really need to figure out how you can stand out, and those conversion rates pan out. And when I say conversion rates, I know this is quick fire. Sorry, it's going to be slow fire for a quick second. This is like, I saw this in marketing all the time. You have 100 MQLs, but only like 2 convert into an opportunity for sales. Well, that's not very good. You had a lot of volume up top, but not much mattered for the business. Same kind of thing with outreach. If you send 100 emails but you get 2 responses, it's like, well, what if I take the time that I spent used to sending 100 emails, only send 10, but I get 5 people to respond? 5 responses versus 2 responses. I don't care if it's like less quantity at the top. Think about what you're ultimately trying to achieve at the end of the day and work backwards from that. And usually the quality argument starts to have it make a lot more sense for you and your behaviors and what you do.
I love that. And there's a podcast that's not live yet, but she built $1 million and only does 3 interviews a week.
That's incredible. I want to hear that one, because that's probably a testament to this.
Quality over quantity.
Yeah.
All right. Now, when it comes to like people that have been around the block, like I kind of joke around, I'm almost 20 years into this career. What advice would you give to those recruiters that have been in the game for a while that either want to continue seeing success or want to keep on growing?
Being scared of change is a big thing. Change management or new things. I remember when, AI ChatGPT first came out, you had all these people. It was really interesting to see who was for it and who was against it. And how I kind of saw the sides shake out was the people that were scared of it were the people that ran the playbooks that didn't use it, or they had a product or service that didn't use it and it was about to be challenged, or there's a better way. So being able and willing to overcome that, I think is a big thing. So, you've been in the space for a while. So how do you take what you've done to be successful? I mean, you don't stay around in the space for 20 years if you haven't been successful. So some things are timeless, developing relationships. This is exactly what you're doing right here, teaching others. And then how do you evolve that over time? So that's what we were saying, like, how do you get smarter with your outreach, where you can still take the time to go find the research on them, to do the personalization, to develop that relationship, but it's not gathering their business cards at events anymore. It's, it's finding them digitally or, engaging with them online. So it's different mediums to the same goal that you've always been doing if you've been successful with it.
Awesome. Has there been a book that has had a huge impact on your career?
I really thought about this one because you did send this one ahead of time. There's so many, I want to call them like, not common books, but a lot of the same books are recommended over and over. So I was like, all right, what's one that I actually have enjoyed that is a little bit different? It's called Boyd, the Fighter Pilot Who Changed the Art of the War by Robert Coram. And why? I mean, it's about a fighter pilot from like the 50s, 60s. So why the heck is that helped my career? So what it really gets into in the book, and what's fascinating, is it really talks about his thought process and how he approached his work. And it's not as a fighter pilot per se, but he really went deeper. So pulled out a couple quotes from it to help bridge that gap. So one is, like he said, if you want to understand something, take it to the extremes or examine its opposites. So I was like, okay, like that's going past surface level insights. Like, why is this working? Why is this not working? What happens if I did it this way instead of that way? And you'll go through it all. And then this next one is a little bit of a longer quote, but this is kind of on a moral level when you really think about your career and why this one has stuck with me. So he's got this speech, he calls it the to be or to do speech. And the way that it goes is basically he says, and you're going to have to make a decision about which direction you want to go. He raised his hand and pointed, if you will go that way, you can be somebody. You will have to make compromises and you will have to turn your back on your friends, but you will be a member of the club and you will get promoted and you will get good assignments. Then he raised his hand and pointed in the other direction. Or you can go that way and you can do something for your country and for your Air Force and for yourself. If you decide you want to do something, you may not get promoted, you may not get the good assignments, and you certainly will not be a favorite of your superiors, but you won't have to compromise yourself. You will be true to your friends and to yourself, and your work might make a difference. To be somebody or to do something in life, there's often a roll call. That's when you will have to go and make a decision to be or to do. Which way will you go? That stuck with me. That hit hard because I feel like so many people do. It's like you see the bureaucracy, how you have to play the game internally if you want to grow, but you also know, like, I don't think that's right. Or I don't know if that's the right way. That's why with me and my career, I've always kept that in the back of my mind. It's like, do I want to play the game or do I want to do something that truly makes an impact?
I absolutely love that. Taking a pause before we go to the next question.
Coffee break. Hold on. We just went way too deep there for a podcast.
I absolutely love that. So because of that, I'm going to skip the next question. Now, when it comes to your success that you've had, has there been a challenge that you've had to go through, or would you say has been a big contributor to your success?
It's kind of along those lines. Like, trust your gut when you think that something isn't working or that there's a better way. Because more often than not, it's right. So with me and in marketing, when I first got started, I was running the digital marketing campaigns that were come to our webinar, get this ebook. And I did great. We hit our marketing goals. We blew them out. We got all the leads that sales could ever want, but sales missed their pipeline goals. And I'm like, well, what the heck? That doesn't make sense. Like, we just doubled our goal and they fell short of theirs. Why is that happening? You know, based on predictable funnel, predictable modeling, all that. And that's why I flipped it over. I was like, okay, let's be an end user for a second. And the people that I'm trying to get to become customers for us, they're downloading an ebook. They're coming to a webinar. Well, those are to educate them. Those are for them to, you know, just understand like what's a best practice. Those aren't people ready to talk to sales. So that's when I really started to get that ball rolling with like, there's got to be a better way to do this. And that's where it came. It's like, those people aren't ready to talk to sales. Don't pass them over to sales. Because one of the biggest things that I saw at the time was the marketing sales relationship wasn't hand holding. It was clashing. Like they were bumping heads hard because they were like, oh, marketing gave us leads. And then marketing's like, we hit our lead goal. Why aren't you following up with them? Well, you know why. They learned their lesson. Like they're not worth talking to, so they don't even touch them. So yeah, long-winded way of saying like my gut was like, let's do it a different way. What happens if like we only focus on the people that, you know, explicitly say, hey, I want to talk to sales? I'm like, I'll tag those leads separately. I'll send it to the sales rep and say, hey, just an FYI, like this is someone who actually wants to buy, not someone who just like, you know, downloaded this thing over here. And those started to convert to opportunities and to customers. So I was like, how do I reverse engineer that process then to get more people who come to us, who want to buy? Like, what was their path? Why was that different? So go have conversations with them and understand, you know, how did they find out about us? They had a relationship. They had a peer who told them about it. They heard the CEO on a podcast somewhere. So I was like, all right, let's do more of those actions, more of those behaviors from marketing than this ebook stuff that's not working. So not hot take, you know, quick fire question, again, gone long, but trust your gut. Like if you think there's a better way, there probably is.
I love that. Because in recruiting, there's 1,000 ways to skin the cat.
Yeah.
But like the way that it was good learning the foundation, but there were plenty of ways to get new business and find candidates. Love that. This is actually one of my favorites. If you can go back to the very beginning of your career, Sam, everything that you've learned, the ups and downs that you've gone through, what advice would you tell yourself if you sat down with yourself?
The work in the trenches is worth it. When you're going through it, it sucks. I started as we called it an ADR, account development representative, a business development representative, you know, the person that was hitting the phones, hitting the emails, all of that. I could not wait to get out of there. I was like, this job is brutal. I don't want to do this. What's the point? But as I've now moved along in my career, it's given me empathy for the people in that role and how I can help to lead those teams. Like I know what they're going through, and I also know how to help them, because usually these are junior people they're coming out of college, they want to learn, they don't have the experience. So I can take my experience. What did I learn when I was in that role to help them be successful? So it's like, try this outreach method instead of that one, or, you know, just helping to guide them in that way. But had I not experienced that for myself or gone through it, it's really easy to just be like, yeah, it's a job, go figure it out, go do it. And just kind of like wonder why your team's burning out, wonder why you've got crazy turnover. And usually it comes back to the manager of it.
I love that. Awesome. Well, Sam, before I let you go, is there anything else that you would love to share with the listeners?
No, this has been fun. I'm honestly, as I said, I'm 6 months in over here at Loxo, so I've got a lot to learn. If people have recommendations on things that I should look into to help educate myself, like I'm all ears, eyes, anything else that I can use to absorb. So I know I said I don't check my emails and DMs for cold messages, but use a relevant subject line like, hey man, saw you on the Elite Recruiter podcast. I'm going to open that. I'm probably going to read it. So yeah, like I'm a sponge at this point, and what my goal here at Loxo is to help create more content, like what you're doing here, Ben. With it's like, how do we help empower recruiters? How do we help them do their jobs better, more effective? And at the end of the day, that's my goal. So just want to help make that happen.
I love that. Well, Sam, I just want to say thank you for coming on the podcast. It's been awesome talking about the evolution of like where recruiting has been and where recruiting is going and how you can capitalize on that and also make more money. So Sam, definitely thank you for coming on.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.